I think NPP has always pointed out that the Easter attack is a political conspiracy done by some to come to power.
I think the president has been talking about the Easter Sunday attack. I think very recently he said that there are certain, like we always suspected, there are certain individuals are part of the state, as we say, right? And it's a difficult place we are in when you have sections of the state who are involved in these. So we have to be very careful about what we do.
So you're saying there are people in the state who are involved in
who are in top positions.
But I mean, wouldn't the investigations reveal who these people
are? It could reveal.
If that is so, there are certain elements in the government who are responsible for the Easter Sunday attack. State, is that what you call the deep state? Maybe. Which they do not want to eliminate because that might destabilize the government.
I didn't say that.
That is the essence of what you said. We don't want to lose this chance.
I would like you to stick to what I said.
We don't want to lose this chance we have. So we have to bring in change, but we have to bring the change slowly.
I didn't say
very thin ice. Okay, that is my take.
I want to be very clear. I did not say that
you did not say that,
we are not protecting anybody within.
If there are elements within the state who are responsible for the Easter Sunday attack, the best is to name them.
No, I don't think that's the best way to go at all.
Attack is the best defense.
Welcome everyone, you're watching Conversations with Alanki. Now in Sri Lanka's political history, power has always shifted between two or more political parties. However, things changed last year when the NPP had a landslide victory in the elections. And I could say that this was probably because people were tired of corruption and the hardships faced due to the economic crisis. People hope that effective action will be taken, but people also need economic prosperity. How will NPP walk the talk and what are the views of the main opposition? To find out all of this and more, today I'll be joined by two attorneys at law. Attorney at law Lakmali Hemachandra representing the NPP, and she's a member of parliament. And also joining this conversation will be attorney at law Tharaka Nanayakkara, the deputy legal secretary of the SJB. Welcome. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. So my first question would be on the economy and the way forward. My first question would be to attorney at law Lakmali Hemachandra. So Lakmali, before we speak about the way forward, I'd like to look back and reflect. I think during the Aragal era, many people were of the view that the Rajapaksas were responsible for the economic crisis and also that the former governor of the central bank, Ajit Niwad Kabral, for taking poor economic policies. What is your view? Who do you think is responsible for the economic crisis?
Thank you, first of all, Alanki, for having me to this show, and I'm very glad to be here. And to answer your question, I think during Aragale, there was a perception that I think it was the liability for the economic crisis was sort of limited to the Rajapaksha regime and the family. They're of course part of the crisis, they're part of the problem, as I would say. But then I think the root of the crisis is much larger than what Gotabaya Rajapaksha's government did or what Ajit Niwad Kabral did at a certain period of time. If you look at what the crisis was eventually Sri Lanka not being able to commit to repay the debt that we had taken. And it was I think it was compounded by certain external factors as well. For example, we were just coming out of the COVID pandemic and the world was coming out of the pandemic. We were also coming out of the pandemic and we faced certain challenges because of that. So that was part of it. And I think the government at the time was not managing it very well. Maybe not being very prudent with certain policy making and not being very careful about, trying to change too many things all of a sudden, and then, maybe too fast also, without considering how the external world was changing. I think this is something that is important for us also. change has to be facilitated within the setup that we are in. So when the world is changing, when the external factors are not conducive to radical changes, then it is up to the government, the administration, to decide how to take that. Not that we don't want to change, but then how do we do that, right? So I think in that regard, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government was not very prudent. That, I think, escalated what was happening. And if you look at the debt crisis itself, with the main problem that we had was that our debt was not sustainable. So then what contributed to that unsustainable debt is, of course, historic. It's not just the contribution of one government. I think it's contribution of consecutive governments which failed to effectively use debt. There's nothing wrong with debt per se. I think every business, every government, every state has to rely on, because external resources are necessary to grow, right? But then how do we use that money? How do we invest that money? How do we, what do we do with that debt? We borrow and then what do we do? So I think in that regard, consecutive governments had failed. That is why when we were entering the crisis, when the pandemic happened, we were anyway in a financially unstable position, right? And that was just in 2020, in the beginning of 2020. So I would say that it's a series of bad decision making and not being very long. There's no long-term policy making perspective in the government. Even today, we are struggling with some of the residue that was left behind. So I would say it's more structural, it's more historic, and you can't really. As a politician, I would love to say it was. It was. If we can just say this was Mr. Rajapaksa's fault. Of course, he is one of the main culprits of it, but you can't really say that he was the only one. I think the government before that was as much responsible, because it was in 2020, from 2016 to 2015 to 2019, Yahapalana government was in power, and some of the decisions that they made in terms of borrowing, in terms of how the economy was handled, in terms of how the state apparatus was handled, especially in terms of the Easter Sunday attack, and then before that also there was, the coup within the government. So all of this contributed to the eventual bankruptcy of the country. So yes, I think Ajit Niwad Cabral was responsible, as the Supreme Court, I believe, has also recognized, and Rajapaksa family was also responsible. But there were also other actors who I think are still at large.
All right. Before I move on to the next question, Tharaka, what are your views on the same question I asked Lakmali?
Well, yes. Your question, if I'm not mistaken, was how to achieve economic prosperity.
No, actually, my question was, who, in your view, is responsible for the economic collapse?
Right. So now,
but because during the Aragale, most people were pinpointing and saying it's the Rajapaksas and it's also the poor economic policies being taken. But like Lakmali just pointed out, that it was not just his actions, but also the actions of consecutive governments.
Well, Alanki, first of all, thank you very much for hosting us today. And when you talk about the economic crunch, the serious meltdown happened during Gotabaya Rajapaksa's regime. But of course, when you look at the Supreme Court decision, I think filed with the initiation of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, several individuals were identified as the reason, as the driving factors of the economic downfall, including the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral, if I'm not mistaken, and the then President thereafter, the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. However, I would say the larger component of responsibility lies with the Rajapaksas who govern this country for at least 3 tenures, from 2005 to 2010, 2010 to 2015, and again 2019 to, ideally they should have gone up to 2024, but due to the pressure of the public, due to the Aragale, Gotabaya Rajapaksa had to step down. So effectively, in the recent past, they managed 3 tenures of administration. And then we have to look back to the history, because you can make bare statements saying it's consecutive governments who took these decisions, but that is the narrative that was driven in the run-up to the elections. We remember people saying there's a 76 years of curse. But let's not forget, during that 76 years, this country got free education. During that 76 years, this country got free health facilities. Even today, the poorest of the poor will not pay a red cent to obtain health facilities, which is a great benefit for the people of this country, the mothers and the sons and daughters of this nation. Then you look at the macroeconomic projects, for instance, the Mahavali hydro and agricultural project, the boost it brought to the economy. So all these things happened during these 76 years. But yes, of course, there has been corrupt politicians, not only in the recent past. In the 1950s, I remember there was a commission to investigate corrupt practices, and 7 MPs of the Bandaranaike government between 56 and 1960, I believe, were sacked from parliament. I don't want to name names. I recall the names very well, but I don't want to name names because they are long dead and gone. But corruption has been observed even back then. But that itself is not the sole cause for economic downfall. Because now, as the NPP continued to preach during the run-up to elections, they were going to eradicate corruption as well as wastage. So let's assume for a moment they have been in power only for 10 months. The president has been in office. The government has been constituted for 8 months. Let's assume for a second that there is no corruption right now and there's no wastage right now. But where is the net result? Has the economy gained any benefits right now? Because the ADB, the more favorable forecast for 2025 is that economy would grow at 3.9%. The ADB predicts. The World Bank predicts a growth only of 3.5%. And the ADB for 2026, Asian Development Bank, has a forecast of only 3.5% for 2026. So this is alarming. So fighting corruption is very good. We will raise both our hands in favor, and we should find who are responsible for this economic downfall, well and good, charge them under whatever the laws possible, take action. The government is theirs. For the last 10 months, the president has been in office. We have only seen, if I'm not mistaken, one politician who has been arrested by the Bribery Commission for fresh charges. That is Hemachandra, former minister, for distributing corn seed, which was intended for poverty-stricken farmers among his supporters. Other than that, Mahindananda Alutgamage was indicted in 2019 for this carom board issue, who was given a jail term of 20 or 25 years. Nalin Fernando, former minister and then chairman of the State Trading Corporation, was given 20 years, again indicted in 2019. Then Keheli Rambukwalla was first arrested for this pseudo medicine sourcing charges in 2023 under Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's government. And even SM Chandrasena's wife and the brother SM Ranjit Samrakun, who was the then chief minister, was again indicted in 2023 and was the matter was thereafter heard, and yes, the final judgment was issued in 2025. So there is time to walk. This is the time to walk the talk, because rhetoric will not take us anywhere. Rhetoric has brought them to power. Strong speeches have brought them to power. People have defeated the SJB and the UNP and Ranil Wickremesinghe and Sajid Premadas together and brought NPP into power. They've given them a considerable mandate in the parliament, unprecedented mandate. So therefore, I believe now is the time to take steps against who's responsible. But I wish to emphasize, you can't blame it on the history in toto.
How do you respond to that?
The crisis was a crisis of debt, unsustainable debt, basically, if you sum it up, right? So then what contributed to that? Obviously, bad borrowing practices and bad decisions in investments. Who made those decisions? People who made those decisions have to be responsible for the crisis. It's as simple as that. During 2016 and 2019 also, we were in a IMF program, right? So even during that time, there were predictions made about unsustainability of our debt. Then what were the measures that was taken by that government? Even during with a backdrop like that, with a backdrop of an unstable economy, what was that government doing? There was power struggle between the president and the prime minister for God knows what, and which eventually led to a coup. And then, basically since 2018, Sri Lankan economy has been, I think it went into a degrowth also after that, right? So I think these are just facts. These are nothing that I'm making up. These are facts, and people who have been in power have to be responsible for that.
Absolutely.
So are we.
So-
We have to be responsible for the decisions that we make.
I
It's
agree.
as simple as that.
So, moving on to my next question, Lakmali. Now, the NPP has been given an overwhelming mandate by the people, a 2/3 majority. How will the NPP use that to tackle or eradicate corruption?
I want to respond to that also because it made it look like, corruption is something that we are only talking about. And I think corruption is a national issue. It's a national issue. It's a problem that we have to resolve. And our government, since we came into power, has been proactively working towards that. So it's not just about convicting people. It's also about unleashing the powers of certain institutions, like the judiciary, like the bribery commission, like the police department. So when you look into these institutions, especially the police department, even the prison department, you can see the level of corruption that is inbuilt within these institutions. So we have to, the task is not easy. It's not just about, the opposition wants to show that this anti-corruption drive that we have, which is a part of our mandate, is about convicting politicians. It's not. It's not about it. Unfortunately, many of them are politicians, but they have not just been politicians. They have also been state officials. There have been, secretaries to the ministries. There have been very high-powered positions in the state administration, and even certain lower-level positions in the state administration. So it's a widespread issue that we have. So we need a systematic answer for that. We have a law, we have to enforce that, and we have to strengthen the law if that's the case, right? So that is the approach we have. We are not going behind this minister or that minister, or, we are not concerned whether the indictment was served in 2019 or 18. As long as we are in power, we are not making any influence on keeping these people safe. They are not going to be part of our cabinet of ministers. They are not going to be, we are not promoting that, basically. So and anti-corruption, like I said, it has to be, it's a huge task.
It's a huge task. And I think one of the main key topics prior to the elections was recovery of stolen assets.
Yeah.
And of course, the bond scam.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question. The NPP said prior to the elections that they will extradite Arjun Mahendra.
Yeah. Not extradite, to bring him back.
What steps have been taken to bring him back?
We have, I think the Aegis department is working on it. I don't have the full information on what we are doing, but I think we have tried to bring him back. There are certain issues with the Singaporean, because he's in Singapore, I believe, right? So then there are certain issues with the Singaporean law, and he's not a citizen of Sri Lanka, so there are certain difficulties with that. But we are, I think the Aegis department, I believe the Aegis department is working on that. So yeah, we have not stopped on any of these accusations.
But would you say there are barriers to fulfilling these promises?
There are legal barriers, of course. I wouldn't say barriers, but I would say there are certain complexities in how we have to deliver certain. It's not just because it's a promise. It's Arjun Mahendran should be facing the law not because it was an NPP election promise, because it's a matter of accountability. And the fact that he was made the governor of central bank itself is a breach of that. Look at the struggle that we have bringing him back. When certain opposition politicians try to make it look like, oh, NPP is not delivering on its promise, what are we not delivering on? What are we failing in accountability? Right? That is, for us, that's a serious concern. For us, that's a serious, we take it as a challenge. Delivering accountability is a challenge we have, right? And I don't think it's something that you should be, if we have said that we are going to do something, we have to try our best to do that, because it's a matter of accountability.
All right. So, Tharaka, do you think it's like when we talk about corruption, we have to talk about the bond scam, we have to talk about recovery of stolen assets. These are topics that were pertinent and are still pertinent. Is it possible to bring back Arjun Mahendran?
Now, this is very interesting. I would like to start from where Lakmali ended. As a responsible opposition, we are wholeheartedly for fighting corruption, because we should not be heard to say, when we say don't misuse the law to corner opposition members or to pressurize them into subjection. No, don't do that. But if anyone is corrupt, say, if there is an allegation against an opposition MP, a member of the SJB, we will fully cooperate, have an investigation. The same way, we bear no responsibility for Arjun Mahendran. But yes, who said Arjun Mahendran will be brought back and dealt with? The NPP, the leadership, the president, he himself said, we will bring him down and make him pay for his sins, basically in no uncertain terms. Yes, do that. Because as far as I know, certain countries do not have extradition treaties with Sri Lanka. I'm not aware whether Singapore is one of those countries. Even if so, there are ways and means. There's diplomacy you can use. And the fact that Arjun Mahendran is not a Sri Lankan citizen should not be a cause not to take action against him, should not be a reason for not taking action against him or an excuse. Because the promises made to the general public of this nation only delivered this victory to the NPP. Therefore, those promises must be acted upon. We insist on behalf of the general public that these promises are delivered, because that is the very reason that a government has been brought in place. But now the ball is in the court of the government. It's for them. Now they can't say, now for instance, Lakmali was heard to say, I believe the AG's department is working on. I don't expect her to have full information on every aspect of government. It's not possible and it's not fair. It's not reasonable. So I'm not expecting her to have a response to that right now. But there must be. There has to be a method. There has to be steps taken, because these are the reasons why people delivered power to the NPP. And mind you, the clock is ticking. So Arjun Mahendran is one. The other politicians or other officials fight corruption. There's absolutely no bar. If you want more law, I believe the anti-corruption law of 2023 is a very effective law. The corrupt practices, the definition of corrupt practices would cover most of the issues that the state would want to take steps against any corrupt officials or politicians. But if you need to introduce new laws, yes, draft bills, present it to the parliament. You already have your 2/3. But as the opposition, I'm sure SJB, I can't speak on behalf of the other parties, will support these moves.
And also, Lakmali, that brings me to my next question. Now, obviously, there are difficulties in bringing down Arjun Mahendran, given the fact that he's based in Singapore. But what about the others who have allegations of accepting money with regards to the bond scam? I believe even there were allegations made by Kishani that former President Ranil Wickremesinghe did not allow him to investigate effectively into the bond scam, especially pertaining to a check received by a certain minister from the Mendes company. So can we expect results really soon?
I mean, this is up to the AG's department and the police department, CID. These are matters under investigation, I believe.
All right.
So I'm not, I don't have the information on whether, at what stage we are on and anything. But I do think that if there was anything done by any minister or any prime minister or anybody else in the government at that time, that should be brought to justice. That's the larger pledge of accountability we have. I believe many of the members, the higher ups in SJB, were part of the Hayapal administration as well. When Mr. Arjun Mahendran was made the central bank governor, And he was given such an enormous responsibility with certain, undertones of conflict of interest as well, while with full knowledge that there was no extradition treaty with Singapore, and he's not a citizen of Sri Lanka. So, I mean, it's easy now to say, oh, NPP, you came into power, bring them back. We are fully committed to that. I mean, the opposition doesn't have to remind us this every day as if we have forgotten it. We know we have the 2/3. We know why we people voted us into power. We are very aware of that. But then for the same people who created certain problems to come back and say, oh, look, you can't, are you struggling with it? Because, I mean, there has to be a certain, level of, there has to be a certain level of accountability within politicians as well. When you make these allegations and when you try to, hold governments who come back into power later on your misconduct and what you have done wrong and your mismanagement. I mean, there has to be a certain, you have to take accountability for what you have done also, right? And I think the bond scam and the fact that the Sri Lankan the law enforcement authorities are struggling, or maybe they are, I don't know whether they're struggling or not, but they are facing difficulties bringing back this particular person is largely a part of the political decisions made by people in power at that time. That also has to be acknowledged.
All right. How do you?
Can I just?
Yes, sure.
Now, this is a very fine way of, how can I say, evading responsibility.
No, I did not.
Mahendran, this is a very fine way of evading responsibility. You promise, okay, say
was it a bad promise?
It's an excellent promise. We are only telling you to deliver without throwing the ball at us. We are only, because Arjun Mahendran was not a Sri Lankan citizen when he was appointed, correct? But there was no constitutional bar for him to be appointed as the governor of the central bank. Then, if any malpractice has happened, the appointing authority was, I believe, technically the president, but we all know at whose behest he was appointed. I don't mince my words. But what has been done, we are not rejoicing at your difficulties. No. We are not. We want you to walk the talk, essentially. Do this, because we also want to see an end to corruption. As a young political aspirant, I'm not a politician per se anymore, but as a young political aspirant, we would like to see you all fighting corruption. When we are not here to pull the leg of the government or to put any obstacles. No, that is not our role. We urge you to take steps, because if now SJB has not been in power, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was in power from latter part of 2019. Then Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe came into power, elected by the parliament in 2022 as the president, right after the Aragale. So the accountability can lie with whoever. But now the power and the authority is with you. We are only urging you to deal. Don't misunderstand. We are not rejoicing at the difficulty of the government in not taking any steps.
You have basically created a mess and want us to clean it.
We have not created. As I'm reiterating, SJB has not been in power, and its leader Sajith Premadasa has not been the president or the prime minister or the finance minister. We don't have any of our ranking members who held even the office of the finance minister. So, but if you say there is a mess, please clean it up. We will support. That's all.
All right. So, shifting our attention back to the economy, Lakmali, in September last year, our foreign reserves were roughly $6 billion. And by May this year, the foreign reserves were at around $6.28 billion. And I think it's very important that even according to the IMF, we need to have at least $13 billion by 2027, given that we have to repay debt. So what measures do you think should be taken to grow our foreign reserves?
Basically, there are only few ways of growing our foreign reserves. We have to make sure that our export income, that our countries, the foreign inflows are strengthened. That's the only way to, foreign currency inflows have to be strengthened if we are to grow foreign reserves, right? So during this time, since I think from we came into power and up until now, we have been steadily growing it. There are no drastic, there are no, massive growths in foreign reserves, but then we also started paying certain debt installments. And we have also started importing vehicles, which cost us foreign reserves as well. And even with those outflows, we have managed to keep it very steady and steadily growing. So then, to reach the number that we require to be in a sustainable position in terms of debt, I think what we have to do is attract foreign direct investments, which is a priority for the government, and also grow on our foreign currency inflows, which is why we are focusing on, I think, in terms of all the avenues of inflows that we have: tourism, export industries, and remittances. It has consistently grown within these months, and we are very happy about it. Even FDI has grown within these months, and we are very happy about it. And we want to, I think we have to make a certain structural changes, certain policy changes in several areas if we want to, grow substantially in the, and we are, I mean, the Ministry of Finance is coming up with policy decisions, policy changes, especially during this budget. I think because we have to support our production economy. Without supporting our production economy, there is no way that we can grow out of this crisis that we are in. Unfortunately,
but are you optimistic that by 2027 we can accumulate $13 billion?
that is the target, right? So we have to. It's not about being optimism or not. We have to set our policies towards that direction. And I mean, right now we have to have, we have to double it basically.
But Tharaka, do you know about the target this year?
Yeah, I believe the target for 2025 that the IMF has set is exactly 7.1 billion US dollars. And at the time, President Andrew Kumara Dissanayake took office on the 23rd of September 2024. The foreign reserves were mounted to 6.3 billion US dollars approximately. And there has been a slight decline of 205 million. These figures are as at late May. This is an uphill task because now Lakmali very correctly said FDIs, foreign direct investments, is one of the principal solutions. But what are the initiatives we have taken? Are we even taking sufficient initiatives to protect our existing export industries? Because we all know the Trump administration imposed a hefty import tax into the United States. It's no fault of the NPP government, correct. But I would say the NPP government should put much more effort into renegotiating this. Because just today, I saw that the European Union has been given a slash on the import tax to the US down to 15%. Our tax component is 30%. I'll give you one example. United States of America is one of our tea buying countries, one of the countries we export tea into. Volume, more than the volume, the price generation is more conducive to our economy compared to our other foreign buyers. Why do I say that? The national sale average for a kilo of tea in 2024 was around 5.25 US dollars, give or take, per kilo. But to the US market, our export average has been $7 per kilo. So there's about a 1.7 premium, 1.7 US dollars premium per kilo of tea. Mind you, we export almost a couple of 100,000 kilos at the least to the US, or maybe close to 1 million. So now when this tax is imposed at 30%, there was zero tax. The tax works out exactly to that premium. That is $1.7 dollars would be the tax component. Therefore, we no longer gain that premium benefit in the US market. Then you take rubber. Sri Lanka is the biggest producer, one of the biggest producers of solid tires for heavy machinery, for heavy trucks, solid tires. We have so many manufacturers, Yamato, then H Solid, then back in the day we had Lodestar. All these organizations have been operating from Sri Lanka, and these are going to be taxed at 30%. So the impact is so much that the EPZ or the Export Promotion Zone Manufacturers Association has warned that around 50,000 jobs are at risk. I'm not even speaking of the apparel industry. America, the United States of America is about, they are 40% of our apparel manufacture is going to the United States, which was taxed, I think, between 10 to 12.5%. Now with 30%, it's going to be taxed at 42.5% on average. So this is a hit. Again, we take this as a hit to the country. I'm very clear on this, not a hit to the government. But we are not in power, we will support you, but the government must start negotiations. You must look at new avenues. Now, Sri Lanka is very well recognized in the Commonwealth, like India. Now, India has secured a trade agreement with the United Kingdom, giving them access to the British market as an alternative to the US market. But they have been careful enough not to extend that agreement to dairy products, because India's Amul is their dairy giant. They obviously can't compete in quality, I believe, with the British substitutes. So they have not extended the trade agreement with India. So these are examples to say this modern trade has to be done through negotiations.
Sure.
These are victories which you gain not by the bullet but by diplomacy. So you need to exercise this. So we are giving clues to the government. We are not saying, oh, we are very happy you are screwing up. No, because
no, we are not screwing up.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying we are very happy you are screwing up, because if they screw up, the country gets affected. Not only the NPP government will win this election, they will lose the next election, and they will go home, another government will come. But it's not that. It's the nation. When I say the nation, the Sri Lankan nation, that gets affected. So these things has to be done. Now, they say the FDIs have improved, but nothing on record. Honorable Vijitha Herath, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, was heard to say, we have secured $500 million of foreign investment. Where to? Nobody knows.
It's in the inflows. The BOI has published.
The BOI has published, that is including the Ranil Wickremesinghe regime's
No. Within
inflows.
these 6 months,
then
BOI has
give
published.
me a source. As far as I am concerned, as far as I am aware, it's only $8 million US.
You
because
should send me the source.
when we state now, when a government minister says it's 500 million, it has to be substantiated.
BOI has published this data.
It has to be substantiated, because for do you know what projects? Do you know one key project? No, you are a member of the government of this country. You're one of the prominent members of the NPP government.
There are several projects that were signed during this period.
Can you give me, say, 1 or 2 examples of?
What I can do is I will share this. I will share the sources for this information.
But what I'm asking you is, I'm not trying to put you in difficulty. Yeah. When you say investment is coming, we must know for what. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Then economic growth. Where are we? ADB.
I want to respond to some of the
things. Yes, of course. ADB says 2025 predicted growth is 3.9. World Bank says 3.5 as a percentage of the GDP, obviously. Then the ADB for 2026 is predicting only to 3.5%. We all know, to service this debt, to accumulate foreign currency, to accumulate foreign reserves, the economy must expand. So what is the plan to expand this economy? Economy must grow. There must be exponential growth to meet these targets. But you must, as the members of the government, you must tell us, when we say, no, where is the investment? Obviously, investment won't grow on the soil. No, there'll be some tangible examples. Okay, this company is coming. This company is coming.
Like the Volkswagens that came.
So it did not come. So that is why. So now, it's very easy to point fingers to the past. Because the other parties have taken. People have lost faith in the other parties only. They have given you power. So yes, I would also love to hear your response.
No, exactly. I would. I would love to, because first of all, the US trade tariff issue. This is. The trade share that India has with USA and the trade share that Europe has with USA, and the necessity that USA has to negotiate with these countries. These are not negotiations done just because India requested or EU requested, right? These are also negotiations that US also has to engage in. And they're doing it because of their own beneficial interest in these negotiations. All of these countries, whether you take Japan, India, or Europe, sure, they have taken considerable tariff cuts from the Trump administration. We do agree. But then they also have large economies, and they have a considerable trade share with US, right? That is, I believe that is the stance that we have to understand, that we have to look at this situation that Sri Lanka is in. On the other hand, Sri Lanka has a very small economy, and US is a very important trade partner for Sri Lanka. But whether Sri Lanka is a very important trade partner for US, I would doubt it, right? We are not, US is not importing a lot of, exporting, we are not, how do I say, we export a lot to US, but they don't necessarily
But
export
can
a lot
any
from Sri
adjustments
Lanka.
or alternatives be made?
Can be made, but then they might be very expensive for Sri Lanka's economy as well, right? Because we also have to understand why US is taking this route. It's basically an internal economic issue that the US economy is facing. Any of the goods that US is producing can be expensive for countries like us to buy. But even so, we are trying to adjust, which is why, as I think Minister Anil Jayant also explained, and I think CPC management has also explained, that we are trying to buy oil from US, which is something that we might be able to buy, right? But then even that, we cannot purchase from US at the cost of Sri Lankan citizens. We have to make sure that it is profitable for us as a country as well. So we are trying to adjust, but these are difficult adjustments. What ideally we have to do is, this is a tough time, we do agree. We are not sugarcoating it and saying, this is especially a tough time for certain exporters and certain export industries. That's true. But we have to also understand US trade tariffs in the, the political, economic, and definitely geopolitical economic considerations that it brings to Sri Lanka. So we have to respect our own country's sovereignty. We have to make sure that our people are not paying an unfair cost for that. And then we have to balance it out. We have to make sure that our trade with USA is safe, but we cannot also compromise the whole economy in that direction, so that because we'll be tied to an economy that continues to seek compromises from us in that sense, right? So I think the best way going forward for us would be diversification out of, we have very few products that we are exporting out of Sri Lanka, and unfortunately we have been doing that for a really long time. I always say this, I mean, even to the ministry officials, I've been saying this, that we should have considered this when the COVID pandemic happened, right? We faced a similar crisis in the garment industry.
Like you said, diversification is very important. Have any steps been taken to diversify?
Exactly. So then consider this when the COVID pandemic happened, because we faced a similar crisis during the pandemic. And when the pandemic sort of, was sorted out and things, the dust settled in, we have gone back to our own practices of, there was no real diversification done. Maybe there were attempts, but after 5 years, we don't see it, right? So then what can we do? We have to find new markets. This is why we are trying to negotiate with Middle Eastern countries, and we are trying to see whether we have tried to reach out to countries like ASEAN countries to see whether we can get some of their market share. Food production is very possible with those countries. And then we have to, for all that, we need a production boost within our own country. We can't diversify, we can't grow out of this crisis if we are in a stagnation level, because we have been facing austerity for a long time. We need to get out of that austerity set, right? But it's not easy. We are in a crisis. We have to pay our debt back. We have to make sure that the treasury is collecting enough taxes also. And we have to make sure that there is, financially prudent decision making in the country. But while doing that, we have to make sure that especially our SME sector is supported, and our production sector is supported. The industry sector is supported. We see a setback in that sector, right? Even though the economy is growing, we do notice there's a setback in that sector, and we want to make sure that that sector is supported. In terms of the US trade tariffs, it's a challenge. It's a challenge that we did not perceive at a certain, when we were discussing the Aragale in 2022, or even, economic policy in 2022, we did not see the Trump administration coming into power and doing all of these things, right? But then this is the reality that we have, and we have to anticipate that this is going to be the direction that the world is going forward, right? So all these negotiations and all of that are pretty power oriented. That is the reality of it. And we are a very small country with very little power in the global scale. Diplomacy works, yes, true, but then if diplomacy works, WTO also should be in operation. There has to be, certain bilateral sense of decision making when it comes to trade. But you see that system falling apart. So we are going back to a system of power-oriented decision making, and as a small country, we are suffering. That's true. But then we have to find better, not better, maybe other trade partners, alternative trade partners, and see. And I mean, it's we have a few more days. Our president, the finance ministry, has been continuously engaging with the US trade representative as well, and we'll see how it comes about. But even if we have to, even if it's the worst case scenario, I would say that we still have to, it's a challenge that we have, and we have to find ways to support our industries, especially the workforce within those industries. That is a top priority for the government, that people who are in these industries, the workers, are protected, and they are transitioned safely to other employment opportunities and so on. These are the priorities that we have.
So I'd like to discuss more on this topic, but because of time constraints, I have to move on to the final question. I think it's very important that any government, regardless of who is in power, finds answers for the victims of the Easter attack. And I think NPP has always pointed out that the Easter attack is a political conspiracy done by some to come to power.
Yeah.
So with the position you hold, what can you say about the direction?
Yeah, I think the president has been talking about the Easter Sunday attack and the inquiry that we are doing. There's an investigation, there's a pending investigation. So he has, I think very recently he said that there are certain, like we always suspected, there are certain individuals are part of the state, as we say, right? And it's a difficult place we are in when you have sections of the state who are involved in these. So we have to be very careful
so
about
you're saying
what
there
we
are
do.
People in the state who are involved in
Or who are in top positions.
But I mean, wouldn't the investigations reveal who these people
it would.
are?
It
Yes.
would reveal.
And you can eliminate them.
Yeah, for sure. But that's also a very sensitive, very, like I said, when you make changes, you have to make sure that changes are done in a conducive manner that doesn't really put, because for change to happen, you have to have change makers in power, and you have to make sure that the process of change is safe. Like Tharaka said, we have a 2/3 mandate. It's largely backed by people. If you look at the opposition talk, they are very angry with the people for doing that, right? They almost make it look like as if people made, voting was a mistake.
We are not angry with the people.
I'm not saying you, but when you look at certain opposition members,
we respect that mandate, and we
when
only
certain
ask you all to
opposition
deliver.
makers, very disrespectful of mandate, I would say, right? There's certain ways that people talk about.
Can I ask you a question?
No, I don't. Okay. I want to answer because you talk a long time.
Okay. Then you won't get a chance to respond when I.
No, I just wanted to say that it's people voted NPP into power, not because they were mistaken or deceived. I mean, you cannot deceive people into voting. I don't know where this comes from.
No, I think
because
people
are intelligent
for
voters.
The NPP because they believe that justice would be done.
Exactly. It's a mandate.
Action would be taken against the corrupt. And also, one could say that economic stability and growth
it is a mandate.
Yes.
It's a mandate. And you cannot disrespect, when you disrespect a mandate, you're disrespecting the people who are behind that mandate. So, I mean, I would love to agree with Tharaka when he says that the opposition is urging the government, is fully behind the government in protecting the mandate. But in action, that is not the case. In action, they are always, making it look like as if the government is trying to, that the people made a mistake in bringing this government into power for God knows what reason. I mean, what has terribly gone wrong in this country that people are, what is the wrong that we have done, right? What has happened? Has there been a bomb blast? Has there been a bond scam? Has there been, some sort of power struggle within the government? Has there been massive scale corruption? Has there been abuse of power to benefit? No, right? this is a new system, new party, new people in power. Of course, there's a certain time of adjustment. And I think that time of adjustment, we have taken that time of adjustment, and we have been very, even with the state administration, because at a certain point, people also wanted us to be very harsh with the state officials, right? When we were canvassing during the local government election, one of the demands from the people is you have to, put these people. So we have to explain, no, that cannot be done like that. That is not how we want to do it.
It has to be done systematically.
It has to be done systematically, right? And it takes time. When you have to replace the old system with a new system, it takes time. But we do not, like I said, we do not want to jeopardize the chance we have. So not being too harsh and too radical, but also not being too slow and very complacent also. This is the balance that we have to take. And I think at the moment, we are fine. I mean, we are safe. I think people are with the government. There is no dissatisfaction with the government. And I think as long as we have people behind our back, we are good to go.
All right. Before we wrap up, anything you'd like to say, Tharaka?
Yes, now particularly, this is very interesting what Lakmali pointed out. If that is so, there are certain elements in the government who are responsible for the Easter Sunday attack. State, is that what you call the deep state, maybe? Which they do not want to eliminate because that might destabilize the government.
I didn't say that.
That is the essence of what you said. We don't want to lose this chance.
I would like you to stick to what I said.
We don't want to lose this chance we have. So we have to bring in change, but we have to bring the change slowly.
I didn't say
very thin ice. Okay, that is my take.
I want to be very clear. I did not say that
you did not say that,
we are not protecting anybody within.
No, I'm not saying you're protecting. I'm only saying you're not taking action. I'm not for a moment saying you're protecting. If there are elements within the state who are responsible for the Easter Sunday attack, the best is to name them.
No, I don't think that's the best way to go at all.
Attack is the best defense. Your militant, the former militant colleagues would know that. I mean, I know you're no militant, but then your former militant colleagues, certain cabinet ministers would tell you, offense first is the best defense.
It's a political
right?
hunt.
No, you're saying the members of the state. No, arrest them on charges, on proper charges, because this is embarrassing. When the government says, okay, we have a mandate 2/3, we have a president, all that is so. But there are certain elements.
It is not as embarrassing as getting
certain
attack happened under your watch.
That is under Maithripala Sirisena, Minister of Defence.
Part of the government.
We were not part of the government. As you said, there was a coup. There was a 52-day fiasco. Ranil Wickremesinghe was kicked out. The Supreme Court.
Wasn't the opposition leader member of the cabinet
Defense
at that time?
was handled by the President Maithripala Sirisena.
Police
was taken over. Ministry of Public Security was taken over by Maithripala Sirisena.
This is
that is your take on it. I'm not bound by your views. It's the viewers who will decide, not you. I wouldn't want to say how embarrassing it is to have got caught stating falsehoods on public. I don't want to take you there. But you're saying the government has certain elements who are responsible for Easter Sunday attacks. The state, but you don't want to take swift action because you don't want to undermine your chance to govern. Let the viewers decide. Thank you very much.
That's not what I said, basically.
Thank you.
So I do think that a debate, the fact that you're here for a debate and you're here for a debate, the opposition and someone representing the government, is always healthy for a healthy democracy. So thank you for being here. I do understand that both of you share different views. So before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience?
I mean, what I want to say is that, like I said, most of these challenges that we face are not our own creating, right? But we have to resolve them. We have to, because and I think the people also believe, NPP is the only chance, this government is the only chance we have. That is why I'm part of this government. I honestly believe that this is the only chance we have to, restart, to sort of get a fresh chance to our country. And all of us are trying on that regard, right? It's easy for the parts of the old establishment to come and say, a bomb blast happened our watch. What are you going to do about it? A bond scam happened our watch. What are you going to do? It's almost as if you're mocking the people. It's also almost as if you're mocking these people who want to get justice. Sure, we take up that challenge. We have come to power to take up that challenge, and we are not retreating from that. We are just telling the people, because it's our job to make sure that people understand where the government is coming from. There are certain, when we are also people in power, right? And this is a country where a lot has happened. And we have to make sure that our chances of change are safe. This is all I'm saying. And to do that, we have to be very mindful and careful about the steps we take. It's, of course, it's easy to name people and, be very dramatic about it. When a few months ago, when the anti-corruption drive just started within the government, we didn't reveal any names. We didn't say what we were doing. We were just saying, look, we are doing this. Be very confident about it. And the opposition went on to say that the government is kindrigana about all of these things, right? But when the arrest started happening, then now they have started labeling it as a political witch hunt and an abuse of power. I will assure you this is what is going to happen with everything else as well. We are being very safe because we are a government. We are not a media spectacle. We are not a drama team, right? We are not here to create drama in the parliament or drama in the news. We are here to make sure that people are safe, right? We are very responsible to that. And for that, we have to take every action prudently and very carefully. And we are doing that. I think that the president, when he's required, when he feels it is necessary, will share this information, because these are investigations. These are pending investigations. None of these things are spectacles. These are investigations. The opposition would love to make it a spectacle, but we will not allow that to happen. We want justice as much as people want justice.
Yes, I do believe people want justice, especially when we talk about the Easter attack. I think it's very important that, around 300 victims. So it's
and a whole community which
a whole
hunted
community
for it.
had lost
Let's
faith.
not forget the Muslim people who went through that space.
I think even if you talk about the Christian or Catholic community, we lost faith in the system, and everyone wants justice. So
not just the Christians, Alanki.
Yes,
I think
the whole
because
country.
you have to
but I think
remember.
As Christians, like I'm a Christian and I feel very affected. Like I certainly don't feel safe going to church anymore. So it's something I can talk on a personal level.
Sure,
so it is something we all look forward to. And thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. And Tharaka, any thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, taking a minute of your time, I would say it's a trying time for a nation. There's a fresh government in place, and as the opposition, we have, during the first 6 to 8 months, we have not made any difficulties to the government. Even today, we are not leading any protests. There are so many burning issues which, if any other party was in the opposition, would have taken people to the streets. The purported educational reforms, the sugarcane farmers crisis, then few months back the paddy pricing. All these are issues, but as a responsible opposition, we are observing the role of the government. And my take is that the people who has voted for this government, we are not blaming the people. We are blaming the people who try to deceive them, because general public only exercise their franchise once in 5 years. But to do that, people are driven by heavy marketing campaigns. Yes, they were driven, but results of the local government elections would speak for itself of the level of satisfaction people have regarding the government. 2.3 million votes short compared to the general elections, and from say 58% of the national mandate, it has come back to the original 43% that they have got at the presidential elections, which in any political theorem or conception is a red light. So it is up to the government to understand this in the true spirit and to go ahead. And we will, as I said, we have no qualms in the government anti-corruption drive. We will support wholeheartedly. If there are perpetrators of Easter Sunday attacks within the system, please bring them to justice. Yes, incident happened which should not have happened, a deplorable incident, a shocking incident which affected the nation as a whole. Definitely the Christians, the Catholics, but as a nation as a whole.
Absolutely.
It shocked the nation, it shocked the conscience of the nation. I remember how I felt at that particular moment when I heard about this heinous attack. And yes, certain other communities were also impacted, but the plight of the Christians, the Catholics, has been a political tagline for so long. And now I believe this is the time to end this and to put some peace into the minds of the victims' families. And I hope the government finds the strength to do that, and to do that soon, as they have pledged in several locations. I don't want to go back into argumentative stuff, but even on these very interviews, on your interviews, I've seen ministers saying this is a matter of few months, all this. The president said there'll be a big reveal, all that. We are waiting for the justice to be done, and we hope justice wouldn't delay and defeat the expectations of the people. And thank you very much for having us.
All right, thank you very much for this conversation, Tharaka and Lakmali. So that was Attorney at Law MP Lakmali Hemachandra and Attorney at Law Tharaka Nanayakkara, who is the Deputy Legal Secretary of the SJB. So thank you once again for watching. I do believe it's very important that members of the government engage with members in the opposition as well, as that's a part of a healthy democracy.
Every day in the
I'm glad you do, and I'm glad you're here for this conversation. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll be back with a new episode. Until then, stay safe and take care. And if you like this content, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends or loved ones. Thank you.